My name's Ian Craig. I'm a freelance journalist who's been covering Yemen since 2010 and have been a co-curator on the exhibition here at Imperial War Museums. What's been happening in Yemen now since the civil war started in 2014 and then escalated in 2015 has led to the world's worst humanitarian crisis. What that means is 80% of the population is now in need of humanitarian aid. You've got millions of people now in Yemen on the brink of famine. And that's really the focus of this exhibition, is what it's like for Yemenis inside that kind of crisis. More recently, there have been attempts to broker a political settlement and a peace deal, particularly in the western Red Sea port of Hodeidah, which is essential for humanitarian aid coming into the country and imports coming into Yemen. It's one of the major trade routes. And those efforts are ongoing at the moment, and in the last few days there have been some progress on that front with the Houthis, who are one party to the conflict, withdrawing some of their forces from the major ports that are so much in need for the UN and humanitarian organisations in order to get aid into the country, in order to get food out to the people who are struggling to feed their families and feed their children across Yemen. Well, I lived in Yemen from 2010 till the end of 2014 for just over 4 years, and now I go backwards and forwards. And it's the longest place I lived in one place as an adult, and so it became a second home to me. And I think watching a country that you love and have spent so much time in tear itself apart is obviously very depressing, and then seeing situations that are really hard to imagine, and that's sort of going around the country and seeing women with their children who are starving to death in their arms. And when, in a lot of cases, 200 metres down the road there will be food, there will be flour and beans and rice sitting in the markets, but the women and the families simply can't afford to buy that food to feed their children. And that's a really hard thing to get your sort of head around and to witness over and over and over again, and over several years as well now. And at the moment there doesn't look like much of a chance of that changing anytime soon. I think this is to remember and recognise what's going on in Yemen when there are obviously a lot of conflicts going on around the world, and particularly in the Middle East, when people have perhaps been saturated with conflict, particularly relating to Syria, that although Yemen may seem very far off and very distant, that the amount of people this is affecting, and that it is now 80% of the population of 27 million people who are suffering as a result of this, and also that it does connect back to Britain and back to the UK, and that we do have an involvement in this, and that people can have an understanding of what it's like to live in such dire circumstances, and to grow up in a conflict, and to have to live with the long-term consequences of that for many years to come.